Well, hello scrappers, Mike here, welcome back to my channel. Now in a recent video, actually a recent pair of videos, I processed my old filters and rags to recover the gold and silver they contained, okay? And that went pretty well. Well, my friend Ken, who lives up in BC, Canada, he has sent me all of his filters and rags to process. That's what being successful will do for you. It's like owning a truck. You got a truck, everybody wants you to help you move. If you're good at processing filters and rags, well, everybody wants you to do it. So, he sent me all his, and some of these, ooh, pretty old, and that one's leaking all over the place. So, got a lot of them here. Quite a few. Now, Ken also said, now you got to remember, not that long ago, Ken sent me, okay. Yeah. Worse than a jumping choya. Ken sent me the gold fingers from 150 pounds of ram sticks to process. And that was a difficult process, and the yield was lower than any of us expected. But he says that probably a lot of gold got trapped in his filters and rags and should be in here somewhere. And in fact, in this bag, I think I see, yeah, I see gold foils in this bag. So we might get a fair amount of gold out of this stuff. I'm also going to process it for silver like I did with my rags. So we'll see what we get. Now Ken did warn me that he uses a lot of potassium nitrate when he's doing his thing up there in Canada, because nitric acid is very hard to get, and he says there might be a lot of potassium nitrate in these. So I need to be prepared for flare-ups when I'm incinerating this stuff, just in case. Okay, so let me get set up to get started, and this is going to take a few runs to get it all incinerated. So yeah, this is probably going to be, you know, better part of a day's worth of work here. Okay, so let me get set up. Okay, we're going to do this exactly like I did my filters. Okay, I've got this pot sitting on top of my foundry furnace, on top of a couple of fire bricks. And we're going to put a good charge of Ken filters in here. Here's some nice dry ones. Those should ash up nice. Now this one here, this is sopping wet, and this is the one that has a lot of gold foils in it. I'm going to put this whole bag in. Yeah, it's going to make a sticky, plasticky mess at first, but eventually it'll all ash up. I don't want to lose any of those gold foils, and I know a lot of them will be stuck on the inside of the bag. So let me get this lit, and we'll get this party started. Okay, let's get this lit. If doing the whole bag goes well, I may do the rest of them that way. That's pretty good. Don't need super high heat for this. Okay, let that heat up. Good breezy day, blowing the wind's blowing the smoke away from me. The part's unknown, so good day for this. And it's starting to heat up, give off some smoke. Good, there's a nice breeze. I can stand upwind from it when I'm working on it. Excellent. Okay, just continue to heat up. I do have to keep an eye on it because Ken said there's a lot of potassium nitrate he used. This stuff might just cook off pretty darn quick. It does kind of smell like burnt fireworks when I do get a whiff of it. Time to give it a stir. Wind's gotten a little variable, unfortunately. I just hold my breath, I guess. Oh, it's starting to ash up. Alright, gets a little hotter. It'll probably catch fire in there. There'll be a lot less smoke once there's some actual flame going on in there. All that smoke will be burned by the flames. Okay, it's gonna let it cook. Give it another stir. Oh, this stuff's ashing up nicely. It's tremendously reduced in volume. Basically, only the really wet stuff is still in there in any large amount. Bust up some clods of that. I think the reason it hasn't caught fire is because that stuff was so wet in that bag I put in there. But it's ashing up anyway, even without actual flame. Shouldn't be too much longer and this first load will be done. And I got probably at least 2-3 more loads to get through it all. Okay, there we go. Now we got some actual flame in there. I don't know if it's showing up out in the sun. Pretty colors too. Blues and greens to it, as well as the usual yellow and orange colors of flame. Cool. Alright. Like I say, this load's almost done. So the fact that we got actual flames in there tells me that the wet stuff has dried out and is ashing up too. Cool. Okay, this first batch has cooked down to almost nothing. I would normally dump it out into the Corningware dish down here. But really, there's not much material left in here. It's all cooked away, and it's a little sticky, I think, from the plastic. So I think it needs to cook a little more, pyrolyze that plastic. So I'm just gonna put another batch on top of the first batch. Oh, I see gold foils in this stuff. Let me see if I can get a picture of that with my phone. That's cool. Well, there's some of those missing gold foils from that project I did for Ken. Okay, we're finding them. Cool. Yeah, there's a few inside this bag too, but I'm not going to put it in there. The first bag got things too sticky. So I will just rinse out the contents of this bag into the ashes when I'm ready to process them. I'll save the bag. Oh yeah, this second batch is starting to cook down. Wow, I'm seeing a lot of gold in there amongst the ashes. Oh yeah. This is where all that missing gold was, Ken. Definitely in your filters. My tongs are covered with gold foils. Huh, I'll have to get a picture of that. See all the shiny gold on there? Holy cow. It's not really showing up all that great on the phone, but yeah. My tongs are covered with gold. Haha. Okay, this second batch is coming along nicely. It's getting there. A few more minutes, I think, and it'll be done. Now, I may shut down after this batch because I live on a tree farm. Palm tree farm. We own the palm tree farm here. And there wasn't anybody around this morning, but got workers showing up now to work in the grove, and I don't want to smoke them out too bad, so I'll probably pick this up another morning before anybody gets here and see if I can get the last couple of loads through. Because that really does kind of stink, that smoke, so I don't want to put too much of it on them. Okay, this batch is done. I've turned the fire off, just waiting for it to cool down. It's amazing how much Ken's rags and filters cook down to almost nothing compared to mine. There's very little material left in this pot. So I think I'm just going to keep putting the next batch on top of the previous batch rather than dumping it out in the Corningware container like I was planning to make room. Because don't really need to make room. Okay, so we'll pick this up again when there's nobody around working in the grove. I don't want to smoke out the workers too bad. Okay, it's another day. There's nobody around, so I'm going to start this up again. I don't know if that's showing up, but my tongs have turned green in the 2 days that I've sat here not doing anything because the grove workers have been here. And there must be a lot of copper in this stuff. So I'm really amazed at how much the first couple of loads have cooked down in there. I'll give you a close-up look at that, because I think I'm just going to keep adding loads right in on top of what's already there, because it's just cooking down to practically nothing. I'll give you a look. So here's what's left of the first two loads. There's hardly anything in there. I see some icy chip dies. There's a few hard lumps. I did pull out a couple of big pieces of steel out of there. I was stirring it around and there were a couple of big lumps in there. So couple of big pieces of steel. I don't know where they came from. But boy, this is cooking down to nothing. I wonder if it's because Ken said those rags and filters were saturated with potassium nitrate. That may be helping it cook down really quickly to ash. I mean, I'm not seeing a lot of big flare-ups like I was afraid of, but it is cooking down really good. So I'm going to get this hot, and I'm just going to put another batch in on top of what's already here, and I'm just going to keep that up until it's all done. Okay, so let's get another batch in here and get this started. I don't see a lot of gold foils in this stuff, but I'm sure there's gold. Well, yeah, I do see a few. But I'm sure there's gold in the liquids they're saturated with, so. Okay, get this warming up. The breeze is a little strong and variable today, so I'm definitely going to need this to keep the ashes from flying out, I think. Okay, get that hot. Well, it took a while to get going because everything was stone cold and those rags are sopping wet, but it's starting. Okay, let's give this stuff a stir. Oh yeah, it's starting to cook down. Good. So I got 2 more loads to do after this one. So hopefully I can get it all done today. Basically, this is the process. I'm just going to keep adding fresh on top of what's already there since it's cooking down so good. And then once it's all ashed thoroughly, we'll move on from there. So I won't make you watch the whole ashing process because this is probably going to go on for another hour or two. But we'll be back when it's all ashed and cooled down and I'm ready to deal with it further. Okay, I just put a bag of really dry stuff in there, and we got kind of a, whoa, really crazy reaction. Yeah, that stuff's cooking off like crazy. That's the stuff that's soaked with potassium nitrate, I guess. That dry stuff went in there and immediately just started flaring up. I was afraid something like that would happen. I missed the first part of it. I didn't get the camera started soon enough. So I didn't think this was going to be so dramatic, but oh my goodness. You can fill the whole neighborhood up with smoke. But wow. That whole bag of material cooked off down to almost nothing in about 2 minutes. Wow. And it's still flaring up in there a little bit. Well, that's going to get me done quicker anyway, as long as nobody calls the fire department on me. So I keep saying we'll be back when it's done. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. Well, I am on the last batch, okay? But as I was just stirring it just now, the material has cooked down to the point where there's not very much in there. Maybe down to here. And as I was stirring it around, I can see blobs of molten metal in there, which I can only assume are probably solder. I don't know. Ken, let me know what you think might be in there. So, yeah, there's some molten metal in there now. I know I'm not getting hot enough to melt silver, even if there's a lot of silver in there. So, it's probably solder, tin, lead, that kind of thing. But the cooking process is almost done. Just a few more minutes and I'll turn off the heat and let it cool down and see what we got. I'm probably going to have to run this stuff through a sieve. There's some big hard chunks of something in there. There's that molten metal which will harden up into hard blobs of metal. There's those IC dyes in there. So once this is cool, I will probably have to run it through some sort of silver screen to at least get the bigger stuff out before I further process it. There's a lot of solids in there. All right, now let this go to completion. Well, just had a bit of a disaster. Burned a hole in the bottom of my pan, and some of the material went down into the furnace, and boy did we have flames flaring up out of this furnace, let me tell you. Wow. Okay, so I will have to clean that out of there once everything cools down, add it to what's left in there, and yeah, then further process it. So I guess we reached at least the softening point of stainless steel. Because we're running a lot harder than I thought I was. Yeah, there's some slag down in there I'm going to have to recover, because it's probably got some precious metals in it. Okay. Put the lid back on this so the wind doesn't blow anything out of it. Yeah, there's some molten metal in there too. I don't know what it is. Hard to say. And yeah, it's going to take all day to cool down. Then I'll have to scrape the stuff out of it that fell in. Then we can go on to further processing. And I need to check the thrift stores for another pan to do this in. Okay, my poor pot here was ruined by this process. Ken, why is it that every time I do stuff for you it destroys my equipment? I can do stuff for me, I don't know how many times. Yeah, there's a hole right through there. And, okay, this is not nice fluffy ash. This stuff has turned into rock hard material. And it was nice fluffy ash until I put the last 2 batches of rags in there. Okay? And then it started getting viscous. That's when it was flaring up with the last 2 batches I put in. Before that it was ashing up nice. Now it's, I don't know what it is. I think those last 2 batches, I mean, this is rock hard. It's like lava rock in here. Those last 2 batches must have been the ones that Ken was warning me about. Were probably saturated with potassium nitrate. So I suppose it could be molten potassium oxide holding everything together now that it's cooled off and hardened. If so, the Florida humidity will start attacking this stuff, and it'll start converting that potassium oxide into potassium hydroxide and eventually potassium carbonate, and they'll all be nice and hydrated. Look, there's some beads of molten metal in that one. I'm sure that's solder. There's a lot of beads of molten metal in that. Like, the more I look, the more I see. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this mess, Ken. I guess I'm going to have to chisel it out of whatever's left of my pot here. Nice big hole in the bottom of it. I fished most of the stuff that fell into the bottom of the foundry furnace out. Here's the plinth that was in the bottom of the foundry furnace. It's all covered with goop. I'm going to have to scrape off of it. But what is this hard rock stuff here? And what am I going to do with it? I guess I'm going to have to run some experiments. I'll probably have to chisel all this out of what's left of the pot here and just save it. I can try hydrating it and see if it goes soft again. If not, I'll probably have to try crushing it somehow into a powder and then dealing with it. So I guess I got some experimenting ahead of me. I may just leave it out for a day or 2 and see if the humidity starts softening it up too. And it could have been the chemicals in here that ate through the bottom of the pot. It could have gone from the top down rather than the bottom up from the heat. That's a possibility too. Oh, Ken, your stuff is hard on my equipment, let me tell you. Oh well. It's certainly never boring, anyway, when I'm doing something for you. Okay, let me think about where to go next with this. And I'm just going to leave it sit for a little while. And see what happens. Well, so much for my first theory what went on with Ken's rags. I put one chunk of that congealed mass in some distilled water and let it sit for about 20 minutes, and it's dissolving away. Tested it with some litmus paper. It is not caustic, it is acidic. So I am not sure what in the world is going on in there, but my first thought that there was a lot of molten potassium oxide in there holding it all together was wrong. So, nope. Something acidic in there holding it all together. Not sure what. Okay. But, like I said, this stuff is falling apart, dissolving. So if I chisel all that stuff out of the pot and put it in a bucket of water and just let it sit for a couple days, I'll probably have it all softened up again and can further process it. That's my new working theory. I'll have to give that a try. Alright, so let me see if I can get this stuff out of here into this bucket. My small scale test showed that this stuff will hydrate and go soft again. Here's a big hole. There's quite a few little holes there. I'm getting most of it. That's got the bulk of it. There's a few stubborn bits, like that right there. Man, that looks a lot like lava rock. But it does dissolve in water. I might as well just throw the whole thing in. I can sieve it out later. That's got it pretty good. One little area. Where is it? Right about there. That is so weird how this stuff turns so hard. And I'll tell you what, this is heavy too. This does not feel like ash. This is heavy. Alright, so let me get some water on this. I'm not going to waste distilled water on it. I'm just going to put tap water on it and let it sit and dissolve for a day or two and then decide what to do with it. So while the stuff in the bucket is hydrating and softening up again, I'm working on my small scale sample. This was a rock I took out of that bucket and put in a little distilled water. And after an hour or two, it had completely fallen apart into pulp. And I've tested the liquid. It's acidic, okay? It's fairly acidic. I've tested it for the presence of silver. I did that off camera. You have to take my word for it. There was no detectable silver in it. So I put it on the heat, and I've added a couple of milliliters of nitric acid to it. And I'm going to let this cook for a little while, and then I will test the liquid again. I'm going to test it for silver again to see if that nitric acid puts any silver in solution. But I'm also going to test it for gold. Since this stuff is already acidic, I'm not sure what acid's in there. Could be hydrochloric. So, yeah, so I put a little nitric acid in there. It's very possible gold that would be in there could go into solution. So I will test this liquid for the presence of both silver and gold, and we'll see if anything's going into solution with just a little nitric acid. This will help guide me towards treating the bulk of the stuff in the orange bucket once it's all good and hydrated, and I'll have to decide how to treat it going down the road. Okay, so we're going to let this cook a little bit, and then we'll run some tests on it. Okay, we had a bit of a weather delay, so this stuff's actually been sitting around for a couple of days. I'm going to give it a good stir to make sure it's all getting hydrated good. There's still some lumps in there, I can feel them. But on the whole, seems pretty well hydrated and turned back into goo. There might be some more big chunks of metal in there. I pulled some out of the ashes before it went all gooey on me and then hardened up like rock. These pieces of, I don't know, heat sink or something. Alright. So this is turning back into something I can work with. I think it's not rock anymore. Let's go look at my small scale test. So here's my small scale test. That's one of the rocks I took out of the pot after it went all hard on me. So I put it in some water. It hydrated. It fell apart. I boiled it in some nitric acid. Okay. Well, not a whole lot, just a little bit of nitric acid. Well, there's only a little bit of material here. First thing I want to do is I want to test and see. The liquid has turned blue, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if that color's showing up on the video or not, but the liquid has turned a little blue. So I guess we probably dissolved some copper. Whoops. So, but I want to test it and see if there's any gold in there. I got some fresh stannous chloride solution right here. Okay, we're getting no reaction. So there's no gold in solution, there's no palladium, there's no nothing in there. Okay, so did we dissolve any silver in there? So that's what I want to test next. Let me get set up for that. Okay, so next we're going to test for silver. So I've got some tap water here with a little bitty splash of hydrochloric acid in it. If there's any silver in this stuff, we should see a white cloud of precipitate in here. And so far, I am not really seeing anything. No, it's crystal clear. So there's really no detectable silver in there. Okay, so treating that with nitric acid was pointless. So I won't treat the bulk of the material with nitric acid. We'll just go straight to Aqua Regia, I guess. But I need to sieve that stuff out, get the big lumps out of it, get the bulk of the liquid off of it, and then we can go to Aqua Regia on it. So that's going to be a bit of a project. Okay. So I was hoping to be a whole lot further along on this project by now than I am. But of course things didn't work out. Ken, your filters and rags turned into concrete in my pot after they ate a hole in the bottom of it. Okay. So this stuff's getting pretty well rehydrated. I need to give some serious thought to how I'm going to process it though. It looks like it's settling nice, which is good. I might let it settle a little more, then I can decant some clear liquid off of it. I want to make sure I don't lose any of the ash that's in there or the fine foils or anything. I might run it through a filter. I don't know. We'll see. I got to think about it. So let me think about it. Let me let that settle some more. Ken's projects, they always turn into something extreme that takes a lot longer than I think it will and is a lot harder on my equipment than it ought to be. So I'll give this some thought, and we'll pick up in part 2 of me processing Ken's filters and rags and see if I can find the gold and silver in them. Give the video a like, give it a thumbs up if you found it at all interesting, educational, informative. If you just think it's the best blooper reel you've ever seen, give it a like. So subscribe to see my future videos, including those where I'm processing Ken's stuff down here and other stuff. I got a lot of other stuff coming down the pike you might be interested in. And check out my second channel, ElectroGeek64. There's good stuff going on over there if you're at all interested in electronics or retro computing. And don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching this one. Bye.